Alhamdulillah, wassalatu wassalamu ala rasulillahi sallallahu alayhi wa sallam wa ala alihi wa ashabihi ajma'in wa ba'd. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Dear viewer of Salam TV, I welcome you to this Alhidaayah show, the Monday edition. It is the 25th day of Rajab, 1445, and the 5th day of February 2024. It is a day that we usually, as Alhidaayah program, we focus on something to do with Islam and science, and we have been able to look at a number of aspects in this program. Quite a number of them that you can find on YouTube for those that have missed several programs ever since we started running this program. This evening we shall also continue with yet another kind of aspect, and it is to do with scientific miracles of Allah's creation. We started this program last week, and today we hope to continue with it. Inshallah ta'ala, if Allah enables us, probably we shall see until we've something to do with childbirth up to the end, inshallah ta'ala. I'm your brother Menya Ayub Kibede, being your host this evening, and in the studio I'm having our brother Sekalim Hamza, who is a lecturer at Islamic University in Uganda. Allow me invite him to say some greetings to you, then we'll be able to commence with our program, inshallah ta'ala. Brother Sekalim, please, I'm most welcome.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Assalamu alaikum wa barakatuh.
We thank Allah very much for the gift of life that He gives us, and the fact that He has allowed us to stay within the fold of Islam, because we should be aware that ultimately Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is musarrif al-qulub, or muqallib al-qulub. He can leave you to go astray or guide you to the right path at any given moment. So whenever you wake up and you are still among the people of La ilaha illallah, it is a very big favor, and you should be able to say Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen.
Barakallahu fikum. Just like I said previously, we started this program last week, and we were able to look at a number of things. We were able to look at how a baby is conceived within that process of a woman having conjugal rights with a husband, and in the due process there is conception. So we explained in detail that kind of stage. We also looked at the factors that can inhibit the process of conception. And we looked at also, things to do with the twins, how they are formed, the process and all of that. Then we were also able to look at how a baby grows within the womb amid this, there would be challenges that is not taking food as we take it here. It's not quite a number of miracles that we were trying to put to light. So this evening I will be focusing at childbirth, having seen all the previous kind of stages. And inshallah, in the studio I have my usual guests in this evening. We are going to commence away from there. So Brother Sekarima, from what we saw last week, all those kind of stages, we are at childbirth. What is the miracle at childbirth really, if we are looking at scientific miracles of Allah's creation, and we have come at a stage where a child has to come out from the womb? What kind of miracle is here really?
Alhamdulillah, salatu wassalam ala rasulillah. Now the very first question that we actually ended on last time was the issue of when does the child actually leave the womb. Because although if you go for a scan, they'll give you what they call the expected delivery date.
Plus or minus.
But they are not able to specify the minute, the hour, the etc. They simply give you a general estimation. And for them, what they base on is completion of term. Primarily, the child is expected to be in there for some weeks, so they make their estimate on the basis of that. But Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the one that makes the final decision of when does a person leave. How do we come to that conclusion? He has specifically mentioned in the Quran. Surah Ar-Ra'd, the 13th surah, the verse is number 8. He says, Allahu ya'lamu ma tahmil kullu untha. So that aspect of even what grows within the womb of the female, and in this case he has used the word kullu untha, meaning he has now generalized all female creatures. It's not only the human beings. So he's saying, ya'lamu ma tahmilu kullu untha. He's the only one that is able to know what exactly is inside that womb. So for us as human beings, we do have some technology, some ultrasound and a few equipment you could try to look into. But when Allah talks of knowing what is really in there, he knows what the gender it is, he knows what size it is, he knows even the internals of will this be a good human being or not, etc. All that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has embedded in that verse. وَمَا يَغِيظُ الْأَرْحَامِ. And he also knows the ones that come out prematurely. Because it is not actually true that everyone that becomes pregnant finally delivers at end of term. In some cases, the fetus will exit before completion of the stages. Of course, depending on how long it has been in there, you will find a difference in whether it will survive or sometimes it has to die just because it is simply too young. 3 months, 4 months, that is too young, it cannot survive. But 6 months, etc., they can incubate it and it grows to full term. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala knows which ones are going to exit before end of term. Then he says, Wamata's dad, he also knows the ones that are going to exceed. I know of a certain lady that produced a child after 2 years.
Wow. 2 years.
So by the time the child came out, it was as if she has produced a real grown-up person. So, meaning Allah can decide to extend. And like we have said, even up to 2 years. And normally, but Allah is the one that makes all this decision. Whenever you see Allah putting something in the Quran and he has associated it with himself. Moreover, for most of these, he puts his name there. Then he says, وَكُلُّ شَيْءٍ عِنْدَهُ بِمِقْدَارٍ. He goes ahead and says, and for everything, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has determined due measure. So it means, even this business of some coming out before end of term, others exiting after some time, Allah measures and conducts his business in very specific terms. So that is one thing that we should note about the way people come out. So it's not just mere end of term. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala makes the decision because we don't have any very particular way in which we can predict the way a person will be born. So that is one verse. The other verse also talks about the way Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala forms these babies as they are inside there. Even before we expect them to exit, they have to be formed inside there. The verse is Surah Al-Imran, verse 6. Huwa alladhi yusawwirukum fil arhami kaifa yasha. He's the one that gives you shape in the wombs or in the wombs in the way he decides. And we know from the hadith that a child will resemble the parent or the parent's side depending on
it depends on for resemblance
What does it depend on?
I'm forgetting that hadith, but it is to do with the amount of semen.
Okay.
Yes, that is.
Generally, it is like that. Although I think it is mainly on the basis of who orgasms first.
That is to do with sex.
Eh.
Yes.
So if the lady orgasms first, it becomes a girl or a boy.
I need to cross-check that, but from what I recall, the orgasm that is to do with the sex, and the amount of semen, it is to do with the
appearance.
The appearance. I need to invest my ears.
But generally, we know very well that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has made us to have these appearances that we have. You'll find in some cases a child who resembles none of the parents and is resembling a certain relative of the parents.
Maybe a third generation.
So that is one way. He's saying he's the one who forms us, kaifa yasha. In some cases, the child resembles one of the parents, 100%, with the other one bringing nothing, just the internal genetics. Otherwise, in terms of appearance, you are seeing only the mother 100% or only the father 100%. Or in some other cases, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the greatest of creators. He merges two individuals. Their children you see, and you can clearly see the two individuals equally distributed. You can clearly see that this child resembles the father, but also resembles the mother. So those decisions, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the one that makes them, and he says, La ilaha illa huwa al-azizul hakim. So he has used those two major attributes of his. Whenever you see Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala talking of Aziz, it is something related with the authority or power over things. And he says the all-wise. Even the way our children appear or the way we appear is all a decision of Allah based on a high level of wisdom. Then the one now for getting out, he says, Wallahu akhrajakum min butuni ummahatikum la ta'lamuna shay'an wa ja'ala lakum as-sam'a wal absara wal af'ida la'allakum tashkurun. That one is Surah to the 16th is Surah to Nahl. He exits you from your mother's womb. La ta'lamuna shay'an. By the time you exit, you know nothing. Whatever you do in that stage, it is just what we call instinct, meaning you don't really use intelligence. You only do things on the basis of just the body does whatever it does without any instruction that is intelligent. It's not that the child begins by thinking and saying, but how will I survive? I think I need to find something to eat. Then he looks for the breast. Instinct, once it is born like this, it immediately begins to look for breast as part of its programming. So he gives you, after that, sama, ability to hear, wal absar, ability to see, wal afida, and ability to think, to contemplate, that intelligent part of the human being. La'allakum tashkurun, and that is what? Then in the another verse he says, Wallahu akhrajakum min butuni ummahatikum kaifa yasha. He exits you from the wombs in whatever way that he wishes. So those verses are all showing us that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala finally is the one that makes decisions about how we exit. And he does it, he says kaifa yasha. So kaifa yasha will include the one that is born starting with the head, the one that is born in the opposite starting with the feet, the one that is born by cesarean, because the doctor may imagine that because he's the one who has operated, now it is not Allah exiting. Your capacity to operate is given to you only by Allah, and if Allah decides that that child will not see the light of day, you will still cut the lady and nothing will come out of it. So we need to be aware that although we may take human actions, we have to be sensitive to the fact that all of these are decisions of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in how the children exit. Now, we know very well that finally
I think there is also a sort of how a baby, Allah makes easy the process in Surah, is it should it be Abasa? Yes, where he says Thumma Sabila Yasara. Yeah, so it is really something that Allah just eases. Otherwise, somebody who is bearing a child of 3 kilograms, 4 kilograms, and Allah, you know, by His will, this baby is pushed out. You know, you can just imagine how that happens.
Wallahi, that miracle of that child exiting from the mother cannot be explained just with the physics or some of these other things we come up with. There is no way you can explain how such a large object can be able to exit through
a small canal like that.
But Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala even declares that He's the one that does it, meaning biological
actually makes that He eases it. Otherwise it is
Thumma Sabila Yasara, meaning had He not made that process easy, there's no way anyone would have been able to produce. The other thing to note is the fact that the kind of pain that a woman goes through in order to push that child out, the biological estimation is that it is comparable to having 32 compound fractures all occurring at the same time.
32.
A lie. Just one thing breaking here, you will make enough noise. But the pain that a woman goes through in order to get that child out is compared to 32 compound fractures all occurring simultaneously. Not that one occurs, then you wait for another 32 times. 32 compounds. So for those of us that play around with our mothers, we should be very serious. The miracle that they are able to bring us into the world is something beyond what they themselves can explain. But 32 compound fractures all occurring at the total pain that occurs during that event is comparable to that. The other thing we should note is that although we know very well that the majority of women tend to produce normally, there can arise some complications. And we may just go over them a little bit, just for one to realize that these things are not obvious. The very first complication that may make this childbirth very difficult to come by is the issue of labor that does not progress. Because the principle is a child begins slowly by slowly to exit. And through that, the cervix continues to open until
it contracts from behind.
So the uterus keeps pushing and we see that progress. So they keep measuring. Centimeter maker. So there is a number of centimeters the medics know how to do. So you may find a scenario where the contractions are weakening, because remember, the contractions are the ones that allow for this process. The contractions can weaken, so the cervix does not progress enough, and in the end, the child is not able to go through. Because like we have said, these are very small outlets. There's no way you can just push a very large object like a newborn child. And in that case, therefore, that's when you have to simply abandon the natural way and resort to having to simply operate the woman. So that is one thing that may occur. The other thing is that, like we said, the channel through which this child comes is naturally a small channel. So the child may cause a major tear, and that one is another complication. A tear can occur that will cause even sometimes the requirement of putting back through surgery. The other problem could be the umbilical cord. We know very well that the umbilical cord is a string and it is essentially interacting with the child. Now that cord may be caught in some of the places, because remember the child primarily exits first with the head, then the shoulders will follow, and so now if you have a challenge where this umbilical cord is again entangled in some of these places, either the hand, or it can cause a distortion in the way the child is supposed to be aligning itself, and that one also can cause issues. But imagine out of the very many women that have these children, remember the child is not static inside there. It keeps moving, making all these somersaults, but you'll find that for the majority of cases, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala protects them from that complication of the umbilical cord getting entangled with the child. But some do have that problem, and in the end, it creates some major problem. Then another one could be an abnormal heart rate for the baby. So abnormal heart rate may occur, although here they are saying it is not a very big problem, but it is something that can occur. The other complication may be water breaking early, because we know very well that this child lives within the uterus and it is surrounded by that amniotic fluid. So once the fluid leaves, it means the child is now no longer really protected by that liquid. So the child now needs to exit. So if the complication would be early breakage, meaning the fluid leaves too early, the child has not really progressed enough, then you find the child has left. And here they are saying it causes sometimes infections, and it is because remember that fluid is a protective layer. If it leaves, then you could end up with a problem. The last one that could be a very big concern is the issue of bleeding. So the lady may bleed excessively, and you end up with a bit of a problem. The other one that we may mention, which is interesting, is when the child is being born, the child gets out, then the placenta follows. Now there are women who are lucky enough to get the child out, then the placenta again refuses to exit. And in some cases you may undergo cesarean because the placenta has refused to exit. So that all those are possible problems that could arise during this process when you are giving birth. So for those of us that understand and have been able to attend to this show, we should always look at all of these as decisions that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala takes, and they can be on our negative side in case we don't appreciate that we have no power whatsoever when it comes to this very intricate process of childbirth.
Abasakam, as we go for a break, just in a minute, of late we've had so many cases. I think it is something that we need to talk about when we come out from the break. But let me ask it so that we can go in the break when it is already asked. Of late we have had a situation where women these days are no longer having enough contractions to have, to ease the process of childbirth. And of course there are a number of theories. If we can have, some kind of throwing light to that kind of scenario, then it will be good, because it is one of the factors these days that is being brought out by the medics, that it is one of the reasons that's why they are having so many
cesarean. People simply
cases.
don't have the required natural construct.
So we are going for a short commercial break. When you come back, I will be picking up right from that kind of point, inshallah. Don't go.
Eno, yes, Salam TV. Fred!
Osmosis.
Freddy! Fred Dollar, my boss, CEO Inojo, the general of generals, the conqueror of conquerors, the first and the final, the sky above the skies, the promised land, the terms and the conditions, the international king crocodile, the source of the Nile.
Rero sina sente.
Mpolayo emitwalo 2 njala kujjuzawo kaduuka kange. The signs and symptoms of success. The bank commander, not the bank teller.
Lwaki okalubirizibwa okufuna looni ng'olina MTN Momo? Weesootinge! Kozesa Momo app omanyiga *555*5# okufuna looni ey'amangu. Londako looni ekukolera okuva mu looni ez'ebika eby'enjawulo eziva mu bannaffe be tukolagana nabo. Nga tuli wamu tewali kitulema.
Explore, enjoy, and dance to the latest content, beats, and kawozi from Uganda and beyond. Simply go to your Play Store or App Store right now, find Afro Mobile, download it straight to your phone, and get started. Is it TV you want? Simply open the app, click on TV, select the channel you want, and watch live. Are you busy right now? Then check out On Demand or enjoy in your free time. Afro Mobile. The future is now.
Uganda, a land bursting with culture and creativity, introduces an innovation for our times. Next Wowzy, a fusion of Next Media, Uganda's largest media network, and Wowzy, a leading influencer marketing platform. It's more than just a platform. It's a movement that bridges ambitious brands with vibrant content creators. Download the app today. Connect, create, influence.
Eno ye Salam TV.
Okay, welcome back, dear viewer, from that short commercial break. Just remind you, you are tuned in to Salam TV on the Alhidaayah show, Demand Edition. And we are here talking about Islam and science. Just like we have already said, the essence of this program is to inspire you to get inspired, and maybe you get interested in this field of science, so that if progressively people can be not get the bias at early stage into the field of science, we can have a lot more scientists, and if we have them, then we can be able to count ourselves as people who are going to venture into the world of science and innovation. And it is from these kind of innovations that are meant to grow the country, to grow the society. We have so many things that are invented. Some are from the inventions. We have innovations, and they can be able to spur the country to development, and even the quality of life can be improved. So the essence of this program is that. So please be glued to this program. Perhaps if even some children are not yet back to school, they can tune in, and who knows if their interests can be aroused, then they can be science for today and tomorrow, inshallah. So Brother Hamza, before you went for a short commercial break, I had posed to you some kind of a dilemma that we are having these days, that quite a number of ladies are getting delivery through cesarean section. And of course, there are a number of theories that have been put across as to why, to explain this kind of situation. But maybe from the research and scientific evidences, we can be able to go through some of those that have been raised as, as the causes for this, inshallah.
Now, a C-section, or what we call a cesarean section, is a scenario where the child is born via an operation. Essentially, they open the womb and extract the child, so the child does not go through the convention, then the convention, which is the birth canal. Now, the statistics show a major increase globally, because if you look at the UN statistics, they're saying by 2000, we're at just 7% of the births coming by cesarean. But now they are talking of up to 22%. So imagine over that period of 20 years, we are seeing 3 times
almost, yeah,
the increment. So what could be driving this issue of very many cesarean sections? The very first one that is being quoted here within the statistics is the issue of choice. They are saying many women are avoiding producing their children naturally. Because remember we said the thing
the contractions.
The thing is 32 fractures simultaneously. That's the pain you have to go through in order to produce a child normally. So some ladies that are not very interested in undergoing that kind of pain, they resort to C-section. But they should remember that C-section is not an encouraged practice. Actually, you will not find any serious doctor who is a woman allowing herself to produce under C-section, because it is not a natural way of people coming into the world. It's just a life-saving operation of better than nothing, but it is not good, because they are saying here among some of the risks you have a risk of greater complications for pregnancies that will come in the future. Because remember, that child going through, there are a lot of chemical, biological, and other, and even physical processes that have to come together for it to exit. So if you dodge it, there are things that you've essentially shortcut, and you will not be able to have a risk-free pregnancy. So they are talking of increase in risks. They are also talking of uterine rupture. Sometimes the implantation itself is not fine, because remember, the uterus is a very sensitive thing. So this one that comes, cuts, and the intention is to get the baby out. They don't really have 100% information about what exactly they are dealing with. So chances of implantation not coming out very well are also becoming a big problem. Then they are also talking of higher asthma rates because of the way the child comes. Well, remember, when this child is immediately born, there's already a natural process that kicks the lungs into operation the moment it comes out through the natural way. Now, when you just cut, chances are that the natural processes that are needed to trigger do not occur in their full form. And in the end, you find people having issues with their breathing systems, which is possibly to account for the increase in asthma cases, because nowadays you'll find there are so many people that come.
And actually, the scissors, they usually call the elective scissors. So usually they, when it is about 2 weeks to your D-Day, it is done either at most 2 weeks, between 2 weeks to 1 week. So they don't allow you to reach a time when you are supposed to be having those that stage where you are supposed, so you are supposed to push. So to avoid such a scenario, they will have to do an elective scissor. So meaning that it is not yet complete, but the child is fully formed.
So those ones are all causes of this increment in C-section. But like we have said, for those that simply fear pain and resort to this not very natural C-section, please, you are making a mistake, because the medics themselves do not encourage it.
Maybe it is for the firstborns, because I see a scenario where somebody goes for a scissor for a first time and is not, is not interested to go for a second scissor, because the scissor itself, in as much as you are having the other contractions amounting to 32 compound fractures at a go, the pain is, we can take it, let's say, at most 24 hours. But the pain somebody has to endure when has gone through a cesarean section, it is, it goes for, yes, it goes for months and months. And somebody who has been, has got a birth through scissor, the life, even if it is just one, the life can never be the same. The person's life can never be the same.
Granted, scissor technology has really improved a lot, because nowadays I understand they no longer even do this vertical cut, they cut horizontally so that the muscles essentially
they use it, they don't even use today's sewing is not even done on
stitching. I think they call it.
So
they no longer use these
they
stitches.
use the glue and everything.
So they've tried just to do the physical part, making it appear more convenient, but they are talking of very many problems that do harm, do come, longer healing time than vaginal deliveries. That one you've already talked about. They are even talking of risks of blood clotting. So although people don't seem to analyze some of these risks before they take it up, you'll find that as a problem. But the other challenge could be with a lifestyle issue regarding our women. Now, conventionally, when a woman walks and does activity, the child inside is also following through with the same activity. But imagine this pregnant mother who goes into an office. This is a sitting office, desk office. Sits there, does work for hours and hours, only goes out for possibly some short or long call and returns, does typing, then goes back at the end of the day, returns the next day. You can see that the level of activity is simply too small.
So meaning it will affect at a time when it is
so this child that is being raised by this largely dormant person here will definitely not come out as strong as the one that is being raised, because you will see that C-sections are very few in the rural areas where you find these women are very active. They are digging. In fact, some of them even do activity up to D-Day, maybe D-hour or something.
Actually, some can produce at in the garden.
So this person is very active, carrying things, etc. So the body is hyperactive. The child is equally very strong. Of course, the other issue comes with the way we are feeding. Some of the feeding patterns are really very bad. Actually, there's a colleague of mine that had his wife produce recently, and he was telling me the wife was not eating anything else apart from some very terribly nutritious porridge that they used to prepare for her. Now the problem that arose is that the child grew into some very big one that could no longer be produced normally. So they had to do a C-section. So possibly that could be another issue. So that one essentially overfed the child. But we are talking of the ones who end up again underfeeding the child. You are eating all this junk food that has very limited nutritional value, but remember you are sharing nutrients with this internally growing child. So all of these are factors that we see causing an increment in the number of these abnormal deliveries. However much the technology will grow, the human being and all the other creatures were created essentially to be born using the natural way. So once you don't allow that to occur, yes, you could appear like you are saving life, but the natural processes do have a reason why they are like that. Even all that pain and etc., it has an essence behind it, and whenever you shortcut it, you will definitely have some issues. So finally, we are saying the child slowly by slowly exits through the birth canal, and the cervix of course expands, and finally we have the child coming out. The child comes out, and the placenta, which is the main the life support system for the child, also has to exit, because it's not a natural part of the uterus. The uterus primarily is supposed to be empty, but that the placenta grows there because of the existence of the child, so it also has to exit alongside the child, and that is how finally we see this child being born. Now the interesting thing about these newborn creatures, for the human beings, the newborn creature is extremely weak and unable to do anything, cannot see, cannot hear. Of course, it can sense the sounds, but it has no interpretation of these things. But for other creatures, Allah has designed them in a different way. For example, these animals that are wild and they live near predators and other creatures, you find for them they have like a 5-minute period of that fetus or that newborn being inactive. For example, if you find like the wildebeest or these gazelles and the others, that newborn by 5 minutes it's able to outrun a predator like a lion or etc. 5 minutes, it can outrun. For some of them, they can outrun. Of course, it is still not as speedy as the mature one, but it can still be able to dodge around. Imagine just 5 minutes after it has been born. But for us as human beings, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has created us and put us in a situation where we heavily need the support of our parents. And that's why Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has passed a lot of rules regarding the issue of parents. وَقَضَى رَبُّكَ أَلَّا تَعْبُدُوا إِلَّا إِيَّاهُ وَبِالْوَالِدَيْنِ إِحْسَانًا. We even have clear special du'as that we have to make for the parents. It is all about this issue. And for us in the Sharia, we know that the mother is 3 times preferred compared to the father. So we say mother first, mother first, mother first, mother first, then father next, because that process that she undergoes from the time you are conceived up to the time when you painfully come out of her body, and from that point onwards you again create now some new chaos. You are now no longer inside, but you are making a lot of noise from outside. Every small thing, you are crying. It is the only communication mechanism you have, and the mother has to go ahead and essentially look at this issue. So nowadays there is an increment in the number of people studying midwifery, and I think the number of practitioners has increased, but for some of our countries, the truth is we still have very few people that are being trained in this industry of delivering. And whenever we have smaller numbers of those people, it means we have a greater risk of women dying while giving birth. Wallahi, it is one of the worst things that still occurs in our generation, that a woman will die while giving birth. She's simply performing a natural process, and she has died because of simplistic things like just being possibly not cared about well during the time they're in the hospital.
Lacking gloves. Things like
And you see very small things preventing our mothers from being able to deliver safely. But of course, due to also the small number of trained people that do the midwifery work, the women end up, maybe you find the person has delivered over 20 babies within a day. They are also stretched beyond what they can accommodate, and in the end they could possibly be making mistakes, or they are also overwhelmed. There are 5, 10 people that need attention. You are 2. So you can't keep jumping from one mother after another. So all of these are things that can very easily result in an increment in the number of people that are dead. So for us, we are encouraging, therefore, greater interest in this issue of midwifery, or even the medical science themselves. But the midwives are sufficient to guarantee us a safe delivery. That is one thing. The other interesting one is things like viral diseases, like this HIV. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has made it a miracle, which Allah is very interesting. When a woman is pregnant and she is HIV positive, the child does not get that virus from the mother. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has put a barrier there between the mother and the child, and has defended the child from that harm. So the HIV transmission only occurs at the time when the child is being born, because that's where you see blood and etc. Otherwise, conventionally, the child within the womb is protected by a miracle that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has put in there. So that is our coverage of the miracle of how Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has made it an intricate process from the time we are conceived up to the time when we are delivered. Either we are delivered naturally, or even if there is human intervention in the form of cesarean, it is still part of Allah's miracle. But one small comment, you realize that there are people who know of herbal things that can help out in some of these complications that we are talking of that cause the need for cesarean. There is one colleague of ours, his wife was having very small contractions, and they had stayed some good hours in the hospital. So the man went and brought some herbal medicine. I don't know what it was, but he was not even around when they were giving. For him, he gave someone to come and deliver to the lady, and he ran away because of the impact of what the other thing does. But wallahi, the moment the woman took the herbal material, Allahu Akbar. Contractions became like, in just less than 10 minutes, the baby had gotten out. So meaning maybe our medics should try and look at some research within these areas, because these are plants. They are not artificial things that are created by some ignorant people. Essentially, these are natural materials that we should be able to investigate and see how exactly they work, because in some cases the medics would resist some of these, saying, there is no research about how they work. Then you do the research. Instead of resisting, do the research, because you may find you can easily reduce the number of C-sections just simply by finding this drug, analyze it to the very maximum, see the active elements, and you can even be able to extract it in a better way and package it better and make it part of standard interventions. Because in countries like China and the others, they don't minimize the issue of herbal medicine. They look at it as a formal thing, they study it, work on it very well, and even their packaging is nearly the same for conventional pharmaceuticals and some of these other.
I think it is to do with our education system, that we have a narrative that we are following. So meaning if it doesn't follow
within what has been taught,
we are accustomed that should be rejected right away. Should not give it any chance. And of course now, just like a friend, brother and peer, who is now somebody qualified in doing research in these herbal medicines. I think it is something that should be taken to another level. Otherwise, we need to find local solutions. We cannot continue denying that something does not work when actually somebody is given and in just 10 minutes somebody, you know?
Because the scientific process is built on the basis of observation. And that is why they even resist the concept of God or etc. They claim they can't observe. But now you have observed. Someone was having 0 contractions.
Yes.
The person has been given a simple liquid, derived of course out of some herbal material. This person within the next 5 minutes begins to have very rapid and strong contractions, and in the end produces a child normally. Yet the person was having 0 contractions. And they have been there for hours, because the person may say, no, it is a coincidence. Maybe the woman now sat in another position. No. So there should be research that is not biased, because the things we are talking about are not things that come out of just some concoctions that human beings are creating. No, people simply extract a bark or the roots of a normal plant, which is Allah's creation, and it becomes part of the solution. So that we can essentially put a scientific explanation to some of these, and it becomes normal.
Because even when they are developing the so-called drugs that we are using in quotes, it is the process, the very process that they follow. The issue now with our herbal medicine that is usually pelted about it is to do with it has not been, it has not passed the experiments. It has, there is no dosage and the like and the like. And these are things that can be scientifically be developed over time. And we can have local solutions. So I mean, I think to people who have, studied pharmacy, and they have the capacity to do even further study with our local herbs, we need to find means of how we can get deep analysis of our local herbs. Perhaps it can save us from the lot of money that we give out in terms of importing drugs and the like that are too even expensive, inshallah. So let's wind up this program with your closing remarks. Although I wanted to ask you some questions to do with the scores of babies, but I think time may not allow us, because usually there is on the cards when a baby has just been born, they usually do some scores.
Okay.
And these scores are from the people who have studied medicine, and they can give you a clue. They tell you that somebody who has scored highly will never be the same in this world as somebody who has scored less just at childbirth. So they are, of course, they are indicators, they are parameters. Has this child been able to cry in maybe these minutes? Has this baby been able to do even an activity?
Because they are saying it is called the APGAR score, a test to newborns soon after birth. This test checks the baby's heart rate, muscle tone, and other signs to see if extra medical care is needed. Babies usually get the test twice, 1 minute after birth and again after 5 minutes. So essentially, once a person scores highly, definitely it means their body is in a better health form compared to one that scores. Because if one has, for example, lower heart rate at the time they are born, definitely they may not come out the same way as one that has started their lives with an already normal score.
Okay, somebody was giving me an explanation to do with the time taken between when the contractions start and when finally the baby is born.
Exactly.
Whenever that lapse is longer, then the baby will score lower. Once it is shorter, then the baby will score higher. And even if you have been, doing everything right within the 9 months, and it is spoiled there, then that child can be somebody of no big use, no big, will not be of good value in this world. So I think it is something that it should be. We need to venture much into it and be able to tell the public what should be done exactly between the person gets the first contraction and the time when we have the birth. So I think we can have your closing.
Now, we are closing by reminding our viewers that essentially our program is intended to encourage people to focus more on the science, because in our country here people look at it as some difficult domain, so we end up with a lack of very critical scientific skills. For example, if we have very low numbers of midwives, we essentially guarantee ourselves a very large number of women that may die while producing, and this is not something that we would like to see. So our effort is to show some of the signs of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala within these areas, also add a scientific explanation to some of the things as a way of inspiring ourselves, especially for us as Muslims, because for us Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has already commanded us to go out into the world, explore and contemplate about his signs, so that we can increase our iman and also be of benefit to society and ourselves.
Barakallahu fikum, jazakumullah khair. With that, we shall have to end our program at this moment. I think for you who have been, glued to the Salam TV, you can now configure the kind of miracle that is within the aspect of from right away the child is being conceived that up to the time when the child is born. All the things that are there are not really majorly a contribution of a man, but entirely or largely being determined by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So we should be appreciative of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala with all his miracles that he has bestowed upon us. With that, we come to the end of this program this evening. Subhanakallahumma bihamdika nashhadu an la ilaha illa anta astaghfiruka wa atubu ilaik. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Eno ye Salam TV.
Adhan ngekutusibwako.
Hotel Africana. Come as a guest and leave as a friend.